The stars above Seoul looked different now. 7 years had passed since the ships arrived, and the night sky belonged to them. Their massive vessels hung in orbit like dark clouds that never moved, never left. Stood on the roof of an old warehouse, watching the alien patrols sweep searchlights across the sleeping city below. He checked his watch. 2 hours until the supply run. 2 hours to move medical equipment across the city without getting caught. Again. Ran cargo ships before the invasion. Real ships that traveled between stars, carrying goods for people who paid well and asked few questions. Now he smuggled antibiotics in food containers and moved comm equipment hidden inside engine parts. The let humans keep some freedoms, but medicine and technology came with permits, inspections, and endless questions. Questions couldn't answer, not if he wanted to keep helping the resistance. His comm device buzzed. A simple message appeared, package ready, North Dock, H. His niece, 16 years old and braver than anyone he knew. She shouldn't be doing this work. She should be in school, worrying about tests and friends, not encoding messages for rebel cells and avoiding alien patrols. But there were no schools anymore. Not real ones. The education centers taught human children that resistance was pointless, that the Empire brought order to chaos. Refused to attend after the first week. They want us to forget who we are, she told. I won't forget. Climbed down from the roof and made his way through the dark streets. They didn't patrol much at night in this district. They considered it beneath their attention. Poor, mostly empty, no strategic value, perfect for people who wanted to move unseen. The North Dock was a collection of old shipping containers stacked near the river. Waited inside one, sitting on a crate with a data pad in her hands. She looked up when entered, her face lit by the screen's glow. 3 shipments ready, she said. Medical supplies going too, comm parts to the mountains, and food packets to the coastal settlements. You confirmed the routes, asked. Twice checked them too, we're clear. The resistance leader who somehow kept all the scattered cells working together had never met him face to face, only through encrypted channels and dead drops. That was safer for everyone. Closed her data pad and stood. She was tall for her age with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sometimes saw her mother in those eyes. His sister, gone in the first year of the occupation. A medical transport hit by fire during a riot. Accident, they claimed. Collateral damage. Uncle said quietly, have you heard about the new protocols? He had, everyone had. Overlord, the governor who ruled Earth from his fortress in Geneva, announced them 3 days ago. Compliance protocols, they called them. Public punishment for anyone caught resisting the occupation. Public execution for serious offenses. Don't think about it, said. We're careful, we stay smart. Thinks they're getting desperate, said. The former UN diplomat who advised the resistance on behavior. She says empires don't announce new punishments when they feel strong. They do it when they're afraid. Maybe, said. Or maybe they just want to remind us who has the guns. A sound echoed outside, boots on concrete, heavy, rhythmic patrol. Killed the light and pulled down behind the crates. They sat in darkness, barely breathing. The footsteps grew louder, voices speaking in the harsh, clicking language of the. Then light spilled through the container's gaps as the patrol swept their beams across the dock. Seconds stretched into minutes, felt his heart hammering in his chest. Beside him remained perfectly still. Finally the footsteps faded, the light moved away, silence returned. That was close, whispered. Too close, we need to move the pickup location. They waited another 10 minutes before slipping out. Helped load the supply crates into his transport, an old ground truck they ignored because it looked half broken. It ran perfectly, made sure of that. I'll take these to the first checkpoint, he said. You get home, stay inside tomorrow. Tomorrow, why? Just a feeling. Things are getting more patrols, more inspections. I want you safe. Smiled, I'm always safe, uncle. I'm careful, remember." She left before he could argue, watched her disappear into the shadows, then climbed into his truck. The engine coughed to life, loud in the quiet night. The next 2 days passed in tense routine, made his deliveries each one successful. No checkpoints, no searches, no problems. He started to relax. Maybe his paranoia was just that, paranoia. Then the news broke. Security raided a safe house in the Eastern District. They found comm equipment, medical supplies, and 12 people, adults and teenagers, resistance members. One of them was heard through the network first, then saw it on the official broadcasts. The plastered her face across every screen in the city, looking defiant even in the arrest photo. The charges read like a nightmare: conspiracy against imperial order, distribution of prohibited materials, participation in terrorist activities. The word terrorist hit like a physical blow. His niece, who helped sick people get medicine, a terrorist. Overlord appeared on screen himself, his alien features unreadable behind the translation field. His voice, filtered through the technology, sounded almost human. Almost. "These criminals represent everything we will not tolerate," he said. "Their punishment will serve as education. Justice will be public. Justice will be remembered." The execution was scheduled for 3 days from now. Seoul City Center, the old plaza where millions once gathered, now an administrative zone, now a killing ground. Tried everything. He contacted everyone in the network. They had no solutions. The had in a fortress, no way in, no way out. "We can't save her," said over the encrypted channel. His voice carried the weight of a man who had made impossible choices before. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Sat alone in his warehouse, staring at nothing. His last message to him sat on his data pad. She sent it just before the raid, not knowing what was coming. "Shipment delivered successfully. See you tomorrow, uncle, don't worry so much. H." 3 days, that's all the time left. 3 days before they made their point. 3 days before they showed humanity what happened to those who resisted. Looked up at the ships in the sky. They hung there dark and silent, untouchable. He started making calls. The plaza could hold 100,000 people in the old days. Now it held maybe 3,000, surrounded by soldiers and surveillance drones. Attendance was mandatory for residents within 5 kilometers. Everyone else could watch on the screens. They made sure everyone would watch. Stood in the crowd, anonymous in a gray coat and hat pulled low. He wasn't supposed to be here. Ordered him to stay away, said it was too dangerous, too painful. But how could he stay away? How could he let face this alone? Across the city, in a basement hideout, watched on a cracked monitor. His hands gripped the edge of the table hard enough to hurt. Beside him, sat with her eyes closed, lips moving in silent prayer to gods that hadn't answered in 7 years. "We have to remember this," said quietly. "Every detail, every second." "Why?" asked her voice hollow. "Because someday someone will ask us why. Why we did what we're going to do, and we'll need to remember this moment." The stage stood in the center of the plaza, a raised platform of their dark metal that seemed to absorb light. At the back sat the execution device, an atmospheric exposure chamber. Clear walls, sealed door, visible to everyone. They didn't hide their cruelty. They displayed it. Overlord stood at the front of the platform, his tall form casting a long shadow. His skin was pale gray, his eyes large and dark. Humans might have found them beautiful once, alien and exotic. Now they just looked cold. "Citizens of Earth," his translated voice boomed across the plaza. "You witness justice today. The Empire extends its protection to all who accept our order, but order requires discipline. Chaos must be answered." 12 prisoners were brought onto the stage. 11 adults, 1 teenager, walked in the middle of the line, her hands bound, her head high. She didn't look afraid. She looked angry. His breath caught. Even now, even here, she was defiant. These individuals chose to undermine stability, continued. They distributed unauthorized materials. They spread lies. They organized against the peace we provide. This is not protest. This is terrorism. The crowd stood silent. The wanted fear. They would get silence instead. The adults will face processing and labor assignment, said. But this one, he gestured to, requires a stronger lesson. She is young. Her corruption shows how deeply resistance has poisoned your society. Watching her punishment will remind you of the cost. A murmur rippled through the crowd. They were going to kill a child, actually do it. They had threatened, had postured, but executing a 16-year-old girl in public. Even the Empire's cruelty had limits, or so they thought. Nodded to his soldiers. They separated from the others and walked her to the chamber. She didn't resist, didn't struggle. She moved with calm dignity that made her seem much older than 16. The chamber door opened. They guided her inside. The clear walls gave everyone a perfect view. The door sealed with a hiss. Atmospheric exposure is precise, explained like a teacher giving a lecture. We remove oxygen slowly. Consciousness fades gradually. The subject experiences increasing distress, but death is certain. Time, 47 minutes. This is not cruelty. This is consequence. Wanted to run. Wanted to charge the stage, break through the soldiers, smash the chamber open. He knew it was impossible. Knew he would die before taking 3 steps. But his muscles tensed anyway, his body rejecting what his mind knew was true. He couldn't save her. No one could save her. The chamber began its work. At first, nothing visible happened. Stood in the center, breathing normally. Then her breaths came faster. Her chest rose and fell with more effort. Minutes passed. The crowd watched in horrible silence. On screens across the solar system, billions of humans watched. The broadcast reached every settlement, every station, every ship. Mandatory viewing. His legs began to shake. She sat down slowly, her movements careful. Even now she maintained control. 15 minutes had passed. Her face showed the strain now. Her mouth open, gasping. Her hands trembling. But she didn't bang on the walls, didn't scream or beg. She looked straight ahead into the crowd and swore she was looking right at him. 30 minutes. Lay on the chamber floor, her body convulsing. Each breath a visible struggle. That could have made this quick. A bullet, a blade, instant death. But they chose this. They chose to make her suffer for 47 minutes while the world watched. At minute 42's lips moved. The chamber had audio and they activated it. Her voice came out weak, broken by gasps but clear enough. "Tell Uncle," she whispered, "I wasn't afraid." She coughed, her body jerking. Then, with what must have been her last strength, she looked directly at the nearest camera. "Make them regret this." Her eyes closed. Her chest rose once more, fell, and didn't rise again. The monitors flatlined. 47 minutes exactly as promised. The silence in the plaza was absolute. 3,000 people standing like statues, watching a child's corpse lying in a clear box. Overlord stepped forward. "This is the price of resistance. Remember it, share it, learn from it. The Empire is merciful to the obedient and absolute with the defiant. Choose wisely." He left the stage. The soldiers followed. They left his body in the chamber for another hour before removing it. Another lesson, another demonstration. The crowd dispersed slowly, shuffling away like ghosts. Remained until the very end, until they carried the chamber away with still inside. In the basement, turned off the monitor. Had her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. Around them, other resistance members sat in stunned silence. "They think this breaks us," said. His voice sounded strange, calm, too calm. "They think we'll surrender now." "Won't we?" someone asked. "No," said. "They just made a mistake, the worst mistake they could make." "What mistake?" Looked up, tears on her face. "They showed us who they really are. They removed all doubt. They took away any reason to hesitate, any reason to show mercy later." Stood. They think they sent a warning, they did, but not to us. They warned themselves, they just don't know it yet. Across the city, walked through empty streets. He didn't go home. He went to the warehouse, to his workshop, to the hidden room where he kept the things that would kill him for possessing. Blueprints, schematics, contact lists, weapon designs, supply caches, 7 years of preparation. He spread them across the table and began to work. They wanted to send a message. Fine. Humanity had a message too. It would take time to deliver. It would require patience, planning, precision. But it would be delivered, would make sure of that. His final words echoed in his mind. Make them regret this. He intended to. They all intended to. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you made humanity watch their children die. For 72 hours, Earth went silent. No protests in the streets, no sabotage of equipment, no intercepted resistance communications. Nothing. The planet that had fought for 7 years suddenly stopped fighting. In the command center overlooking Geneva, Overlord reviewed the reports with satisfaction. All monitoring stations reported the same thing: compliance. His advisors congratulated him on the effectiveness of the execution. The human spirit, they said, had finally broken. They understand now, told his council. Fear is the foundation of order. The child's death taught them what words could not. But in Seoul, in the same warehouse where worked, the silence meant something different. He hadn't spoken since the execution. Not one word in 3 days. He ate when food was placed in front of him. He slept when exhaustion forced him to stop working. The rest of the time, he sat at his terminal, sending coded messages to addresses spread across the solar system. Visited on the 2nd day. He found surrounded by data screens, his eyes red from lack of sleep. The network is asking for orders, said. Didn't look up. His fingers moved across the keyboard, entering coordinates, times, locations. Talk to me. Finally paused. He turned to face, and the resistance leader took an involuntary step back. Eyes held something cold and final, the eyes of a man who had already decided. Tell them to wait, said. Tell them to stay quiet. Tell them we're not broken. We're loading the gun. Across town, in what used to be a university lab, Sora worked behind locked doors. She was a before the invasion, one of the first humans to study physiology. After the occupation, she offered her services to the Empire. Collaboration, they called it. Traitor, others called her. But Sora hadn't been helping she had been studying them. For 7 years, she cataloged every biological weakness, every environmental sensitivity, every genetic flaw. The thought she was helping them adapt to Earth. She was actually documenting how to kill them efficiently. Now she uploaded everything to the Resistance Network. Atmospheric preferences, nutritional requirements, vaccine schedules. The data spread through encrypted channels, reaching resistance cells on Earth, Mars, the Belt, and Europa. Sora shut down her lab computers for the last time. She had played her role. They would figure it out soon, but by then it wouldn't matter. In orbit around Mars, floated in the maintenance bay of a mining station. He used to design spacecraft for human exploration. Now he welded plates onto mining equipment under supervision. At least, that's what his work log said. Actually, was converting mining drills into kinetic weapons. The modifications were subtle, hidden in normal maintenance work. The inspectors saw mining equipment. They never looked close enough to see that had turned each drill into a ship-killing projectile launcher. 47 stations across the solar system, 47 sets of modified equipment, all waiting. Receives message on the 3rd day. Package delivery scheduled. Prepare inventory. He smiled for the first time since the execution. Package delivery. Inventory. Business terms. The monitors would ignore it as routine communication, but knew what it meant. Go time was coming. On Europa, deep under the ice, Ben sat in a server room surrounded by blinking lights. He looked like a maintenance tech keeping the colony's systems running. He was actually inside the communication network. 7 years of careful work. 7 years of installing, copying protocols, mapping their entire fleet's command structure. They built their network on the assumption that humans were too primitive to crack their encryption. They were wrong. Ben had everything: fleet positions, supply schedules, command codes, weapon inventories. He knew where every ship was at every moment. He knew their patrol routes, their blind spots, their vulnerability windows. The intelligence flowed out through hidden channels. Every resistance cell received updates, real-time data on enemy movements. They never suspected that the humans they defeated knew exactly where they were, all the time. In the mountains north of Seoul, a woman named assembled components in a cave system that had never mapped. She was a weapons designer before the war, creating mining charges and construction explosives. Now she built something different. The devices looked simple: metal cylinders with electronic controls, but each one contained enough shaped explosive to punch through a hull. Had built thousands of them, hidden in supply caches across Earth. She received her instructions from delivery route confirmed, multiple stops required. Translation: distribute the weapons. Every resistance cell gets armed soon. They watched Earth's silence and saw surrender. They didn't see the data flowing through quantum encrypted channels. They didn't notice that every human who had collaborated for 7 years was suddenly going dark. Sora stopped reporting. Ben's updates became sporadic. Missed check-ins. Minor issues. Probably just humans being unreliable, the supervisors decided. On the third day, called a meeting of the Resistance Council. 20 leaders from around the world, connected through Ben's secure network. Faces appeared on screens, transmitted through routes they couldn't track. They think we're defeated, said. Command believes the execution worked. They're reducing patrol frequencies. They feel safe. How long do we have? Someone asked. Says 72 more hours, replied. That's how long until everything is in position. And if we're discovered before then we move early. But we only get one chance at this. We need everyone in place. Spoke up from his location. Protocol is 7 years in the making. Every person, every weapon, every piece of intelligence. We've been patient this long. We can wait 3 more days. Protocol, named after the girl who told them to make the regret. The plan they built brick by brick while pretending to be beaten. The thought they occupied Earth. They didn't realize they had been letting humanity prepare. Stood on the same warehouse roof where he watched the stars 7 years ago. The ship still hung in orbit, dark and massive, but they didn't look untouchable anymore. They looked like targets. His comm device buzzed. Messages from across the solar system. Confirmations rolling in. Mars ready. Europa ready. The Belt ready. Luna ready. Earth ready. 47 locations. 47 coordinated strike teams. 47 targets selected for maximum impact. They made humanity watch a child suffocate for 47 minutes. Humanity would answer with 47 simultaneous strikes. Poetic, in a dark way. Thought about her last words, about her defiance even in death. They wanted her execution to be a warning. They wanted humans to see what resistance cost. They succeeded. Humanity saw and learned. They learned that they would kill their children, would make them suffer, would broadcast it as entertainment and education. They learned there was no mercy to expect, no compassion to hope for, no compromise possible. They removed every reason for restraint. They made it personal. They made it absolute. In 72 more hours, they would understand their mistake. The silence continued. They celebrated. Their reports showed complete pacification of human resistance. The threat was over. Earth was finally, truly conquered. Overlord slept well that night. So did his commanders, his soldiers, his administrators across the solar system. They had no idea that every single one of them had been marked, that human eyes watched them, that human weapons pointed at them, that human patience, tested for 7 years, was about to end. The silence wasn't submission. It was the sound of a gun being cocked. The clock showed 71 hours since the execution, 1 hour until protocol began. Sat in the cargo bay of his ship, now revealed for what it truly was, a command center. The truck, the warehouse, the simple smuggler routine, all of it was cover. For 7 years he had moved people and equipment under the noses. They saw cargo. They missed the weapons. Around him, screens displayed positions across the solar system. Green dots for resistance teams, red dots for assets. The dots were converging. "All teams report ready," said through the comm. He was in Sol's underground network coordinating the planetary assault. "We're go on your signal." Looked at the main display. 47 targets, 47 strike teams. 7 years of preparation coming together in one moment. If this failed, humanity was finished. They would show no mercy after this. It was victory or extinction. He thought about, remembered her sitting in the shipping container, checking her data pad. Remembered her smile when she said she was always careful. First said quietly, then louder, "Execute protocol, all teams go." Across the solar system, humanity struck. On Mars, activated the mining equipment. But instead of drilling into rock, the modified machinery targeted the command station in orbit. Kinetic projectiles launched at devastating speeds. No explosives, just mass and velocity. Physics doesn't care about armor when the impact energy is high enough. The station's shields flickered, then failed. The structure crumpled like paper. Atmosphere vented in explosive bursts. The station that controlled operations across the Martian colonies died in 40 seconds. Didn't stop. 47 mining stations across Mars opened fire simultaneously. Orbital platforms, supply depots, patrol ships, all targeted with mathematical precision. They scrambled to respond, but their communication network was compromised. Ben, sitting in his server room on Europa, had activated his kill codes. 7 years of access unleashed at once. Communications went dark. Their encrypted channels filled with garbage data. Fleet coordination vanished. Each ship, each station became isolated. Communications jammed across all frequencies, Ben reported. They're blind and deaf. Window is 20 minutes before they reroute to backup systems. 20 minutes, more than enough. On Earth's weapons activated. Thousands of them placed in strategic locations over 7 years. Not bombs in buildings or attacks on civilians. Was precise. She targeted infrastructure. Power relays that fed installations. Shield generators protecting their bases. Fuel depots supplying their ships. The explosions rippled across the planet in a coordinated wave. Every facility on Earth lost power within 3 minutes. Backup generators kicked in, but they were already targeted. Second wave of explosions took those out too. Earth-based forces are dark, confirmed. No power, no shields, no communications. In Geneva, Overlord's fortress went black. Emergency lights activated, bathing everything in red. His advisors ran through corridors, shouting contradictory orders. Their comm systems were dead. Their orbital support was gone. They were trapped in a fortress that had become a tomb. "What's happening?" demanded. "Get me status reports." No one could answer. The humans they thought they had defeated were answering instead. Across the belt, resistance teams seized mining operations. The asteroids that supplied the Empire's industrial base changed hands in coordinated assaults. Workers they thought were slaves revealed hidden weapons and training. Guards who thought they controlled thousands found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Belt sectors 7 through 19 secured, a voice reported on SCOM. Forces surrendering or destroyed. On Luna, the human workforce that maintained facilities turned their tools into weapons. Construction mechs became war machines. Loading equipment became assault vehicles. The garrison, caught completely by surprise, lasted 18 minutes before surrendering. Europa's ice mines became. Bin's intelligence network identified every position. Resistance teams, guided by perfect information, struck each target with overwhelming force. The underwater cities that supplied the fleet fell in synchronized attacks. All major colonies reporting success, announced from her coordination center. Forces fragmenting, some surrendering, others attempting retreat. Don't let them regroup, ordered. Any ship trying to flee, take it down. The ships that attempted to escape found themselves facing an unexpected enemy. Not military vessels, humanity had lost most of those in the invasion. Instead, they faced cargo haulers, mining ships, colony transports. Civilian craft modified over 7 years into improvised warships. They had superior weapons and armor, but they were isolated, confused, and facing attacks from every direction simultaneously. Their tactical advantage evaporated when they couldn't communicate or coordinate. Sora's biological data played its role too. Resistance teams targeting personnel knew exactly what environmental conditions would disable them. Atmospheric adjustments in ventilation systems, temperature changes in barracks, contamination of food supplies with substances they couldn't process. Not poison, just extreme discomfort that left them unable to fight effectively. Biological countermeasures working as predicted, Sora reported. Ground forces at 40% combat effectiveness. The precision was terrifying. Every piece of the puzzle fit perfectly, every weakness exploited, every strength neutralized. 7 years of humans pretending to be defeated, broken, all while they studied, planned, and prepared. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had protocols for resistance, strategies for rebellion, experience with occupied populations. But they had never faced this. A species that could plan for 7 years with perfect patience. That could hide weapons in plain sight, coordinate across a solar system, and strike everywhere at once. Humans looked primitive. They made decisions based on that appearance. They saw the simple technology, the fragmented governments, the barely spacefaring civilization. They didn't see the pattern recognition, the strategic thinking, the ability to plan decades ahead while executing perfectly in the moment. In orbit around Earth, Fleet Command tried desperately to regain control. Admiral, military commander, watched his displays fill with disaster reports. Mars Command destroyed, Belt operations lost, Luna garrison surrendered, Earth forces isolated, Europa network compromised. I can read, snapped. How did they coordinate this? We monitor all communications. Unknown, Admiral. The attacks suggest intelligence we didn't know they possessed. Intelligence. That was the kind word. The truth was simpler. They never suspected that the humans they defeated had been studying them every day for 7 years. Learning their language, their technology, their tactics, not as students, as hunters learning their prey. Get me a channel to Overlord, ordered. Communications are compromised, Admiral. Then use backup frequencies. Also compromised. The humans have complete control of our network. Stared at his officer. That's impossible, our encryption was broken years ago, Admiral. They've been inside our systems the entire occupation. The implication hit like a physical blow. Everything. Every transmission, every order, every fleet movement, all observed, all cataloged. They had been fighting blind while the humans watched everything. On display, the countdown continued. 14 hours since the assault began. They were still trying to respond, but their coordination was shattered. Isolated units fought bravely but uselessly. The battle was already over. Now came the final move. Begin Operation Checkmate, ordered. Across the solar system, Human forces that had been defending their positions switched to offense. They didn't just hold ground. They advanced, pushing the back, surrounding their remaining strongholds, cutting off escape routes. The empire that came to Earth with overwhelming power was being systematically dismantled, not through superior firepower, through superior planning, through patience, through the simple fact that humanity had 7 years to prepare and used every single day. The quiet war was ending. 14 hours of precise, coordinated action. The occupation, 7 years in the making, was collapsing in less than 1 day. And humanity hadn't even shown mercy yet. 14 hours into protocol, Admiral sent the transmission no commander had ever sent before. All forces cease military operations. Repeat, cease all military operations. We are requesting terms of surrender. The message went out on open channels. Every human resistance cell heard it. Every soldier heard it. The galaxy heard it. An empire that had conquered for 3,000 years was surrendering to a species they classified as primitive. The news spread across territory faster than light could travel. Impossible, their government said. A mistake. A communications error. But it wasn't a mistake, it was a fact. Received the transmission in his command center. Around him, resistance leaders watched their screens in stunned silence. They had planned for victory, prepared for it, executed perfectly. But hearing the actual words of surrender felt surreal. "Do we accept?" someone asked. "Not yet," said, his voice was cold. "First, we finish this." In Geneva, Overlord sat in his dark fortress and waited. His guards had abandoned their posts. His advisors had fled or surrendered. He sat alone in the command center where he once ruled Earth, watching the displays show the systematic destruction of everything he built. The door opened, didn't turn, he knew who would come. Entered with 4 resistance fighters behind him. They wore simple clothes, carried improvised weapons. Not soldiers, just people, but they had defeated an empire. Overlord said. The title sounded like an insult now. Turned, in 7 years of occupation he had never looked weak. Now he looked exactly that. "You've won, my fleet is scattered, my forces surrender. What more do you want?" "You know what I want." His large eyes blinked. For a moment he looked confused. Then understanding showed on his alien features. The execution, the girl. Her name was... Yes, a regrettable necessity. "Don't," his voice cut like a blade. "Don't call it necessary. Don't pretend it was strategy. You wanted to break us. You wanted to show your power. You made her die slowly while billions watched. It was meant to prevent further resistance, to save lives in the long term. You killed a child to frighten us," said, "but you made a mistake. You thought fear would make us submit. Instead, you removed the last reason we had to show you mercy." Stood slowly. His species was taller than humans, meant to be imposing, but standing before he looked small. "So you'll execute me now? Public display. Make me die slowly like the girl." Stared at him. "No, that's what you would do. We're not you." He gestured to his team. They surrounded, binding his hands, not roughly but firmly. "You're going to trial," said. "You're going to face justice. Real justice. You'll testify to your crimes. You'll answer for every death, every torture, every atrocity. And the galaxy will watch. Not because we want them to fear us, because we want them to see that we're better than you." They led out of his fortress. Outside, human forces had gathered. Thousands of people, resistance fighters and civilians, watching the overlord in chains. They didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. They just watched in silence as was placed in a transport. The silence was louder than any shout. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Commanders surrendering to human forces. Not killed, not tortured, arrested, processed, prepared for trial. Admiral surrendered his flagship to a team led by a man named Ho. Expected execution. Instead, Ho offered him water and medical treatment for his wounded crew. Why? Asked. We invaded your world, killed your people. Why show mercy now? Ho looked at him with tired eyes. Because someone has to stop the cycle. Because if we become you, then you've won even in defeat. Because we want the galaxy to see the difference between an empire and a civilization. 14 hours and 37 minutes after it began, protocol ended. The occupation was over. The count was precise. 47 major installations destroyed or captured. 98% of forces surrendered. Casualties, minimal on both sides. The resistance had been that precise, that coordinated. But now came the harder part, peace. Took the lead on negotiations. She was a diplomat before the war, one of the last from the old United Nations. Now she represented humanity to the Empire. The negotiations happened on neutral ground, a space station in the belt. Representatives arrived expecting to discuss terms of their withdrawal. They found something different. The terms are simple, said. She sat across from 3 ambassadors, with beside her and been monitoring communications. Complete withdrawal of all forces from human territory. Reparations for damages and occupation costs. Full access to your war crimes tribunals for those who committed atrocities. And technology transfer for medical and defensive systems. The lead ambassador, a female named, shook her head. Those terms are excessive. The Empire will never. The Empire surrendered, interrupted. You don't negotiate from strength anymore. You can't hold our entire fleet, protested. We have reinforcements coming from the core worlds. Ben looked up from his terminal. No, you don't. Your fleet command already recalled them. We're monitoring all your communications, remember. We know everything you're planning before you plan it. His composure cracked. This is madness. You defeated one occupation force. The Empire spans thousands of worlds. We could return with. You could, agreed. And we would defeat you again, because we've proven something you refuse to accept. We're not primitive. We're not weak. We're patient, strategic, and when you make us choose between submission and total war, we'll choose war. Every time. The room went silent. Finally, spoke quietly. What guarantee do we have that you won't use this victory to invade territory? You have our communications, our codes, our weaknesses. Smiled sadly. You don't understand us at all, do you? We don't want your territory. We don't want an empire. We just want you to leave us alone. She pushed a data pad across the table. These are the terms. Non-negotiable. Sign them, or we release everything we know about military capabilities to every species in the galaxy. Your enemies will have Christmas come early. Your choice. 3 hours later, the Empire signed humanity's terms. Complete withdrawal, reparations, war crimes tribunals, technology transfers, everything. The news spread across human territory within minutes. Earth erupted in celebration. The colonies lit up with fireworks and festivals. For the first time in 7 years, people danced in streets without fear of patrols. But in Seoul, at a small memorial in the old plaza, stood alone. They had built it where the execution chamber stood, a simple stone marker with his name and dates. 16 years. That's all she got. Below her name, they carved her last words. Tell Uncle I wasn't afraid. Make them regret this. Flowers covered the base of the memorial. Thousands of them, left by people who never met her but knew what she represented. The child who died defiant. The spark that ignited humanity's response. We did it, said quietly to the stone. We made them regret it. We made them all regret it. Behind him, footsteps approached, joined him at the memorial. The last transport left Earth orbit 10 minutes ago, said. They're gone, all of them. Nodded good. They stood in silence for a moment, then spoke again. The tribunal starts next week, and 47 other commanders, public trial. The galaxy will watch. 47, repeated. Same number as the minutes suffered, same number as the targets they hit. The symmetry felt right. Some people want revenge, continued, want them executed, want them to suffer like our people suffered. What do you want? Looked at the memorial. I want the galaxy to see that we're better, that we can win without becoming what we fought against, that justice means more than revenge. Would like that, said. She believed we were better. Over the next weeks, the trials proceeded. Overlord and his commanders faced charges of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and violations of galactic law. The proceedings were broadcast across known space. The Empire watched their leaders held accountable. Other species watched humans create justice from victory. Some commanders showed remorse. Others remained defiant. All faced the same impartial process: evidence, testimony, fair defense, then judgment. His trial was last. He sat in the same chamber where died, now converted to a courtroom. The symbolism was intentional. When asked if he had anything to say, stood. He looked at the human judges, at the crowds watching, at the cameras broadcasting to the galaxy. I underestimated you, he said simply. We all did. We saw primitive technology and assumed primitive minds. We thought 7 years of occupation would break you. We didn't understand that you were learning, adapting, planning. We didn't understand that your patience was a weapon more dangerous than any bomb. He paused. The girl, I ordered her execution to demonstrate power. Instead, I demonstrated our fundamental misunderstanding of your species. You don't break under pressure. You sharpen. I gave you a reason to unite, a symbol to fight for, and 47 minutes to remember exactly why you hated us. Are you saying you regret it? The judge asked. I regret underestimating humanity, said. The execution itself was within my authority, but the consequences, he looked directly at sitting in the gallery. Yes, I regret it. The judges convicted him. The sentence, life imprisonment with required testimony about occupation tactics to prevent future atrocities. Not death, not revenge, justice. A year after the liberation, Earth held a memorial ceremony. Not just but for everyone who died in the occupation. 50 million names on a wall of stone. His name sat among them, not elevated, not special. Just one name among millions. But her words were carved at the top of the memorial, visible from space. Make them regret this. And beside it, humanity's answer, added after the victory. They made us watch her die. We made them regret everything. The Empire never returned. Other species approached humanity differently now, not as primitives to conquer or ignore, as equals, as people who proved that determination and strategy could defeat overwhelming force. Retired from resistance work, he went back to running cargo ships, this time freely across human space and beyond. Sometimes he carried supplies, sometimes passengers, sometimes just traveled because he could. But every year, on the anniversary of his execution, he returned to Seoul, stood at her memorial, remembered the girl who died defiant and the warning humanity delivered in response. The galaxy learned its lesson. Humanity wasn't primitive. They were patient. And if you made them choose between submission and total war, they would choose war and win it with terrifying precision. All because they were humanity, and humanity took care of their own. Even in death, especially in death.